Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 26.3 released to the public a couple weeks ago, and iOS 26.4 Beta 2 released to developers a few days ago. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.4 Beta 2 is out what's new video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some new features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 17,000 votes and 216 comments. I've gone over all your comments to determine what the overall experience is like for most of us, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple opened a new store in Mumbai this week. This is in the Sky City Mall, and this is the second store in that city. You can see it opened on February 26th. This is what it looks like. So if you're in the area and you tried out the store or went to the store, I'd love to hear your overall experience and what you thought of it in the comments below. On Thursday, Apple said that iPhone and iPad are the first devices cleared for NATO restricted level classified access as they meet the information assurance agreements. They posted it here. You can see on their newsroom where it says iPhone and iPad approved to handle classified NATO information. So these are the first devices approved for that. And of course, I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. While we know there's an Apple experience for many media members this coming Wednesday, Apple is teasing a big week of releases. Tim Cook actually posted on X, you can see here, a big week ahead. It all starts Monday morning. So Apple launch is the actual hashtag. So this is something coming this week. We expect quite a few things, a big release ahead, maybe new Macs, iPhone 17e, possibly a new studio display, and updated base iPad and iPad Air. This is mostly expected to be a spec bump for most devices with the M5 Pro and M5 Max. Maybe we'll even see the M5 Ultra, but that could be expected a little bit later. But either way, we can expect multiple products rolled out starting Monday, possibly Tuesday, and then Wednesday, or maybe even beyond that. Steve Jobs would have been 71 last Tuesday. In celebration of the Apple founder, Tim Cook posted letters to young creators reflecting on joining Apple and Steve Jobs. You can see the post here where it sort of writes it out. We can skip that and you can see the post itself. I'll link this in the description below, but he talks about his career and then of course Steve as well. Something big for India seems to be Apple is working to bring Apple Pay to the country. This is something I know many of you have been messaging me about and commenting on videos asking when it would be available in that country. And code in iOS 26.4 seems to point to Apple laying the groundwork of Apple Pay in India, and Apple is also in talks with many banks in the country according to Bloomberg. So it looks like this is something that could finally roll out in India. We don't know exactly when, but maybe with the launch of iOS 26.4. In other big news, Apple announced plans to start assembling Mac Minis in the USA in Houston, Texas later this year. They posted this again in their newsroom where it says Apple accelerates US manufacturing with Mac Mini production coming later this year. So this could be the same factory they produce the Mac Pro in, and of course they don't really produce the Mac Pro a whole lot anymore, so they need to do something there. So it looks like they're going to invest in the United States and start building products here as well. Now that Apple owns the rights to F1 coverage in the USA, you can now watch F1 Drive to Survive on Apple TV as well. Typically, this was only available on Netflix, but it's now available in Apple TV as well. Also, they've added a new guide and Apple Maps for F1 around the world. You'll see 2026 Formula One tracks around the world. If we open up the guide, you'll see it here, and you'll find it in the Maps app under Guide. So you can see this here, get more information about it. If we scroll down, maybe we'll go to Suzuka here. And you can scroll down and see more information about it, see the track, and if you zoom in, you'll see the track here as well. So just keep zooming in, and of course, you'll see the F1 track. So continue to zoom in, and there's the track layout there. So this is available now. If you have Apple Maps, be sure to check it out if you're interested in F1. When it comes to new features this week, well, you can now see the build number while you tap on the actual build within your software update. So if you go to General Software Update, give it a moment to load, go to more details. On this page, just like About, you can see it here. So it's just another way to see the build number that sort of replicates what you have on the Mac or in the About page. Also under Messages, now that we have the encryption update, we'll go in here. If we go into Messages, you can see here where it says Text Message RCS Not Encrypted. We tested it after Beta 2 was installed, and now it says encrypted. Now, prior to this, depending on the carrier, this did work a little bit on Beta 1, but now it works here, as well as iMessage here as well. So depending on what you're using, it will tell you that it's encrypted or if it isn't. So that's something that's been added that will hopefully be on all carriers by the time iOS 26.4 is released to the public. Thanks to Gus for testing that out with me. When it comes to the App Store, there's a couple things people had questions about. Age verification was added in the UK, and many people were concerned about this or confused about it, and it was asking you to verify your age to allow for restricted content or to download and purchase apps rated 18+. According to Apple, this is a bug. However, this is now default in Brazil, Australia, and Singapore for some, so it looks like maybe they accidentally turned it on for the UK, maybe it's coming later, but either way, that's something that's new. Also, if we go into the App Store, within your Apple account, some people at the bottom are seeing a shortcut for Apple Music. I'm not seeing this myself, but I've seen others that have the shortcut here, so let me know if you're seeing that as well. Also, if we go back into the TV app, and maybe you're watching one of the latest Apple TV shows, if we go down here and go back to subtitles, we now have some additional options for style. So we now have classic, large text, outline text, transparent background, and then you can manage styles here. So you'll see that here. It gives you an example of what it looks like. So if you want to have this on all of your different subtitles, you can do that based on whatever works for you. So that's available in Beta 2, but you may also see it in Beta 1 as well. Also, if we go into the phone, if you miss a phone call, it now tells you the city and state where the phone call originated. In addition to this, if we go into shortcuts, maybe you're adding a new shortcut and you want to change the glyph here at the top. We'll tap on it. Then if we scroll down, you've got hundreds of them, but if we type phone here, you'll see that we have a new flip phone style glyph. So that's been added in Beta 2 or was there with Beta 1 as well. There's also some app updates I wanted to mention. Apple released a new Sales Coach app as predicted a couple weeks ago. The app replaced the previous Seed app and now provides product information and training for Apple Store and provider employees. So that's available now. Also, YouTube updated Premium Lite, where it now has background plays and downloads, and is a light version of regular YouTube Premium where you get ad-free playback on most videos. So it's not everything, but now you have background play and downloads. WhatsApp is also planning to release a new scheduled message feature according to WA Beta info. So you can see here, if we scroll down on their website, it has scheduled messages. So this is something that could be coming very soon. Also, many people were concerned about Discord with their age verification that they were going to do. It looks like they've pulled back on that for now, and they're going to sort of postpone it or maybe cancel it until later. So that's something we're not going to see right away for a while. Now, iOS 27 is still supposedly going to be focused on stability and refinement, but this week Mark Gurman has said that the upcoming macOS 27 update will have a touch-optimized interface as Apple prepares a new touchscreen MacBook to possibly launch by the end of the year. So this is something we've heard over and over, and of course we would need an interface to be provided for a touchscreen Mac. However, they sort of already have that with an iPad, so maybe there's some refinements there as well. When it comes to releases this week, well, there was an unexpected release late on Thursday with visionOS 26.3.1. That was to fix an issue where the displays would flicker. I've experienced it myself, so I'm glad to see they're fixing that so quickly. Also, Apple stopped signing iOS 26.2.1 and iOS 18.7.4, leaving only one version enabled to downgrade to, such as iOS 26.3. Based on that, and based on some information that Mac Rumors has seen, it looks like iOS 26.3.1 is probably coming soon next week. We don't have a specific date, but given that they're going to release some products, maybe it will be early next week or possibly the following week. But either way, I would expect that soon as well. Apple also released the final version of Xcode 26.3 with Agentic AI. It utilizes OpenAI or Anthropic, depending on whatever you'd like to use, and helps you write your code. In addition to this, there's a new Safari technology preview. On their website, if we take a look, you'll see we're now at version 238, and it's available for macOS Tahoe and macOS Sequoia. So that's available now if you want to test out the latest features. As far as future releases, well, I already mentioned iOS 26.3.1, and that could be as soon as Monday, based on what we see as far as releases. Apple's planning to release some products, so maybe it will go along with that. Based on what we had last week, we could also see an iOS 26.4 Beta 3 as soon as Monday or Tuesday. However, based on what they've done in the past, it could be every other week or it could be next week. Apple really has seemed to change up its schedule, so we just don't know at this point. But we do expect a public release, probably towards maybe mid-March or so with iOS 26.4. Of course, we expect iOS 27 probably in early June, with iOS 27 Beta 1 being shown to the public for the first time at WWDC 2026. I would expect that to be around June 8th, where we'll see some new features, whatever Apple's working on with stability, and of course, hopefully some more surprises. Now, when it comes to overall experiences this week, the first thing I wanted to mention is the AirPods Pro 3 experience. iOS 26.4 Beta 2 seems to fix the connectivity issues people were having with it, where it would just randomly disconnect over and over. So it seems it's pretty good if you're on iOS 26.3, but with 26.4 beta 1, it was problematic. However, the public beta is not out yet for public beta 2, so if you're on public beta 1, you'll still have those issues, but if you're on developer beta 2, they've cleared those up, it seems. When it comes to iOS 18.7.5, it's only available for iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max. Apple is not making it available for any device that supports iOS 26. So if you've been wondering about that, that's why it's not available. Unfortunately, you're open to security vulnerabilities due to that. The only thing you can do to patch those is upgrade to iOS 26. So at this point, I don't see Apple allowing us to upgrade anything on iOS 18 that supports iOS 26. When it comes to iOS 26.3 and its overall experience, well, if you had some bugs, those bugs, of course, will still be there, but usually things can change after a couple of weeks. Most people still say it has decent stability, at least based on the YouTube community poll, and many say that CarPlay connection issues are fixed for the most part. However, for some, CarPlay seems to have random and frequent disconnects. The only fix is to reboot the phone, or reboot the car, or turn the car off and on. Also, UI and animation stutter go along with visual glitches. They're still there. They're not there all the time, but they do seem to be there, especially on older devices. The keyboard is improved, but it seems to be glitchy, mostly on quick replies. Some have said that the touch sensitivity while replying is a little bit off. Also, some have had random app crashes, but it seems to be mostly decent for most people. When it comes to iOS 26.4 beta 2, why there was no public beta yet, we don't really know, but there are improvements throughout. For example, system data has been improved. We'll take a look at that with storage a little bit later. So those that had the bug where it would just inflate to over 100 gigabytes, that seems to have been fixed. It fixed the charging bug, so if you go to plug in your phone, it will charge properly now. So if we plug in my phone here, it charges right away. It also tells me the AirPods Pro 3 need charging, and there's really no issues with that. It seems like it fixed all those issues with the charging at least. UI stutter is gone for the most part. However, scrolling using adaptive power does seem to be a little bit slow the first time you scroll. I think that's because it ramps up the power, or at least the processor speed, and then it's nice and smooth. The keyboard, again, is much better for most. So you'll see in notes, if I type this is iOS 26.4 beta 2. It seems to be nice and fast, no real issues there. Again, sometimes in quick replies it can stutter here and there. Like I mentioned before, the AirPods disconnect bug is fixed for most, and also it fixed Siri doubling the name when it would talk back to you. Also, there's modem improvements. So many people have seen good connectivity. I saw it all week. I was using it outside my house. I was in San Francisco for a Samsung event, and it worked great. No real issues there. When it comes to bugs that are still remaining in iOS 26.4 beta 2, some are saying that Spotlight doesn't work properly. If you scroll up, sometimes it doesn't do anything. Also, a few have said that the native Gmail app is having issues, but that's for them to update with a new app. And also the volume slider can disappear for some. So if you're trying to adjust volume, sometimes the slider's just not there. One issue I found while I was in San Francisco is I woke up and I had zero signal. I had hoped that this wasn't the issue people were having with the iPhone Air where it was bricked or having an issue there, and thankfully it wasn't. I just turned off Wi-Fi and all of a sudden I had my signal back. So that's something that I saw on my own phone. Thankfully it's not something that's broken, but it was something that happened, so I thought that was a bit odd. When it comes to performance, well, other than the stutter I already mentioned, it's quite smooth. If we go over to the app library and scroll, ProMotion is nice and smooth. It ramps up and down as you would expect. Scrolling through web pages is smooth, especially if you have that feature turned on that I mentioned in another video, just to make sure it's very smooth. And just the experience overall seems to be nice and fast. So swiping in and out of apps, going into maybe the weather, you'll see things are loading faster than you would expect this time around. When it comes to overall heat and thermals, well, there were quite a few people saying their phone was very hot for a few days. Then it sort of cooled down after it finished indexing and processing in the background. It seemed to be an extended time this time around. So if you are having issues with that, give it a few days, make sure there's no apps doing it. But let's go ahead and run benchmarks and take a look at the thermals. We have iPhone 17 Pro Max. The one on the right is running iOS 26.4 beta 2, and where this recalibrates, we're at about 36 degrees Celsius or so, right around that area at the hottest point. And then on the 26.3 17 Pro Max, we're right around 34 degrees Celsius or close to it. Typically, we run right between 35 and 36, so this is well within the margin of error and what we would expect. Benchmarks completed, and you can see on the left we have a little bit higher scores, and that's on iOS 26.3. We have 3,878 for single core, 10,007 for multi-core. On iOS 26.4 Beta 2, we have 3,781, and then 9,819. This can go up and down, but is well where we would expect it based on running a beta. They typically go up after you're running a beta. So 26.3 seems to be very fast, but again, there's still some bugs here and there. When it comes to battery life, well, first let's take a look at a viewer's battery life who sent it in. Thanks to Abhishek for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 16e running iOS 26.3 with 99% battery health and set to an 85% charge limit. He had 5 hours and 56 minutes of screen on time, 45 minutes of screen off time, and had 78% battery usage. So pretty good for the 16e, especially since it's set to an 85% charge limit. Now, I've been using iOS 26.4 Beta 2 on my main device, traveling all week, but let's go ahead and go back, take a look at battery health. I'm at 100% with 27 cycles, and if we take a look at battery life itself, well, depending on the day, it's pretty decent. 4 hours and 21 minutes of screen active time, 4 hours and 31 minutes of screen idle time with 75% usage. Depending on the day, you'll see I used 92% here. I was in buildings that didn't have great reception or were very congested networks, and then the day before, you'll see it varies greatly. But I had the best battery on Monday when it released, with 6 hours and 18 minutes of screen active time using 85% of the battery. This is actually quite good for me if you've seen some of my previous batteries, so it definitely is increasing with Beta 2 for me. Now, when it comes to the overall experience and what you had to say, let's go ahead and take a look at some of your comments. Jay Muez says, "Hi Aaron, I'm using iOS 26.3 on iPhone 13 and everything works great for me. The battery drain has been improved compared to iOS 26.2. Chris Palmer 4983 said, "I've been using iOS 26.3 on my iPhone 17 Pro. Battery life has been good. The standby battery drain has been great. I easily get all-day battery life with moderate use. Overall, performance has been smooth and snappy. A few minor bugs, but not anything major." Aiden Middleton 4550 said, "iOS 26.3 on iPhone 17 Pro Max. Battery life is significantly better than iOS 26.2.1. Performance is nice and snappy, plus it's super smooth overall. I am very impressed. Nothing to complain about. Looking for Siri 2.0 and iOS 27. Payan Family 3584 says, "CarPlay has not been connecting wirelessly for the last 3 days on my 16 Pro Max, iOS 26.3, vehicle 2025 F-150. Caden 5590 said, "26.4 Beta 2 is surprisingly stable and smooth, and my battery life is also great. 17 Pro Max. Oh Gnome Unnamed said 16 Pro on 26.4 Developer Beta 2 here. The previous beta had introduced a bug where the dock icons would often refresh going back and forth the app library. It seems fixed now. There was also a delay in keyboard showing up in the app library search and Spotlight in 26.3. That's all gone. The experience overall feels so much better after these issues are gone. The App Store slowness and the current search bar placement is kinda annoying though, and the lack of Siri update was disappointing. Keyboard sluggishness is also fixed on the Beta 2 surprisingly. I had this keyboard issue both on my iPhone 11 and 16 Pro. 11 is still a bit sluggish, but way better than it was. Overall, I'm happy with the update." Jaden Lion Media FHA1 said, "I'm on iOS 26.4 Beta 2 on my iPhone 15, and it's by far the best iOS 26 update yet. Liquid Glass has definitely been refined significantly and looks overall much more glassy than any previous update. The keyboard is significantly better, and WhatsApp even got Liquid Glass. The only issue I'm facing with this update is Find My got disabled on my AirPods and refused to re-enable. I reported this earlier, and hopefully it will be resolved soon." Scott Is Tech said, "I'm on iOS 26.4 Beta 2 on my 16e. Performance is very good. Battery is phenomenal, with the phone using only about 49% of the battery and lasting about 10 hours. Haven't noticed any serious issues with bugs." Jose Adorno 292 said, 26.4 Beta 2, iPhone 16 Pro Max. Battery life has taken a significant hit since updating from Beta 1. Karen Versirif 5739 said, "Experiencing a lag every time I swipe up from the lock screen to the home screen. This lag stays persistent since iOS 26. I'm currently on iOS 26.3. When it comes to storage, let's go ahead and take a look at settings. So we'll go to General and then iPhone Storage. Give it a second to load. Scroll to the bottom. And you'll see iOS is taking up 22.05 gigabytes. That's pretty typical, what I've seen all along. And if we take a look at System data, this goes up and down from anywhere from 1 gigabyte to probably 50 gigabytes. This is completely normal to be at 23 gigabytes. It's going to use what's available. So if it's around this, I wouldn't worry about it, but it can go up and down. But I've heard from many of you that it seems to be fixed and it's no longer going over 100 gigabytes. But let me know in the comments below. When it comes to iOS 26.3, it's one step forward and one step back. I would give it a C+ as far as a grade, where the community consensus on iOS 26.3 is incredibly divided, making it a classic mixed bag release. For about 40% of users, it's a solid, snappy update with excellent standby time that finally smooths out the rough edges of 26.2.1. However, the remaining majority are incredibly frustrated. There's severe battery drain and extreme random overheating, which are plaguing a significant portion of the user base after 2 weeks since it started to degrade. With iOS 26.4, there's promising gains. I would give it a B at this point, where iOS 26.4 Beta 2 is showing a lot of promise, particularly when it comes to power management. Nearly 2/3 of the community reporting on battery life have noticed phenomenal improvements and much cooler running temperatures compared to iOS 26.3. Apple also seems to have fixed several annoying UI stutters and of course that AirPods disconnect bug I mentioned earlier. However, it is still very much a beta, and while the core system feels smoother, specific applications are taking the hit, namely a sluggish App Store, broken Spotlight search for some, and native Gmail app issues that have glitches for multiple users. Of course, that's a developer issue that they need to update their app for. But again, it is an early beta. Hopefully it gets more and more refined, and of course we've seen some changes throughout Apple, and I think things are getting much better from here on out, but hopefully we'll see that very, very soon. Of course, with Siri 2.0, Apple Intelligence upgrades, and hopefully an iOS 27 that finally sorts out the year-to-year bugs, where it starts with tons of bugs and then gets less and less by the time the next release comes out. So that's it with iOS 26.4 Beta 2 and iOS 26.3. Hopefully this week we'll see iOS 26.3.1 and of course the big updates according to Tim Cook that we're going to see with Macs, probably iPhone 17e and more. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.